9 months away from home with a 5-month-old baby, a 12-year-old chihuahua, and a plan that fell apart 2 days before the flight. That was the start of Riana's family adventure through France, the UK, and Spain. On this episode, she shares exactly how they made long-term travel work, dog and baby included. This is the Global Travel Planner Podcast, and this is episode 100.
Welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is founder of the Global Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. Each week, Tracy is joined by expert guests as she takes you on a journey to destinations around the world, sharing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, and practical tips to help you plan your next adventure. Join us as we explore everywhere from bustling cities to remote landscapes, uncover cultural treasures, and discover the best ways to make your travel dreams a reality.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Global Travel Planner Podcast, the show that helps you plan your trip anywhere in the world with people who have actually been there. I'm Tracy, and this one is very special because it is episode 100. Thank you so much for being here, whether you've listened from the very first episode or you're joining us today for the first time. To mark the occasion, I am joined by Riana and Canning, the travel writer behind Teaspoon of Adventure. Riana lives in Vancouver and she's just come home from 9 months of slow travel with her husband Colin, their baby daughter and their 12-year-old dog Ellie. They based themselves everywhere from Toronto to the Loire Valley, Brighton and London, with a week in Spain for their daughter's first birthday. And along the way, they navigated a last-minute change of plan that sent them in a completely different direction. If you've ever wondered whether a longer, slower trip is possible once there's a little one or a pet in the picture, you're going to love this. Riana, a very warm welcome to the podcast. Let's start right at the beginning. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your life before this trip?
Yeah, so my name's Riana. I'm a travel blogger based in Vancouver, Canada. And I kind of say the trip that kind of like started it all for me was in 2012. I was 19 years old and a flight deal popped up in my inbox to go to Europe. I was living in Toronto at the time. And I kind of sent it out to all my friends and was like, we got to go. Who can come? And nobody could go. So I kind of said well, I guess I can go. So I went by myself. It was my first time to Europe, first solo trip, 19 years old, kind of did, the London, Paris, Barcelona, all the big cities, and just kind of fell in love with travel and seeing the world. And from that point on, kind of just took advantage of every opportunity I could find to travel. So I studied abroad in Amsterdam. I did an internship in Southern Africa. I got a job in Tokyo. I volunteered in Peru, and that was all before graduating. And then after I graduated, met my husband, and we did some small and some big trips, lots of stuff around Canada and the US, Mexico, but then we also went to New Zealand, Southeast Asia. And then kind of our big trip was, we moved to Prague for a year. And that was in 2019. So actually it was a little shy of a year because we all know what happened in 2020. So we came home a little bit early, but that was kind of our big long-term stint, living abroad in Prague for that year. And we traveled all through Europe. And I think that kind of inspired us, hey, we really like this long-term travel idea, this, having a base, being able to kind of slow travel from there. And how do we do that again? And that has kind of become our mission, I guess, for the rest of our travel life, is how do we keep fitting in these kind of long-term adventures every few years?
And the recent trip that you just took, you've managed to do a fantastic trip slightly differently because you had two additions as well as your husband Colin and yourself. Do you want to talk about who actually went with you on this trip? Because this is really cool.
Yes, we decided to really complicate things. We brought our daughter, I call her Baby C, and she was 5 months old when we left. And then we also brought our dog Ellie, who's 12 years old. So we brought a little chihuahua and a little baby. I think when we left, Ellie was heavier, but then when we came back, our daughter was heavier. She outweighed her by the time we got back home. Yeah, so that was 9 months with a dog, a baby, and a husband.
That's absolutely fantastic. So it just shows you can sit down, and if you plan it right, you can take some time out from whatever you're doing in your life and just say, right, okay, we've got a baby, we've got a dog, we're going to go and travel. So let's talk a little bit about kind of making that decision. Did you make that decision before baby C arrived, or did you kind of have her and go, you know what, let's go and take her somewhere on an adventure?
Yeah, no, we had actually been, I think the bug was planted, I think back in probably, it was before we left for Prague, so maybe 2018. I had read an article of a couple who did a much shorter trip. I think they maybe did a month in Southeast Asia, but during their parental leave, like with their baby. And they kind of said, oh, we just strapped the baby to our chest and off we went. And that kind of planted the seed for me. I was like, oh, you can do that. Like you can travel with a baby. And then I think once we got back from Prague, it became very clear that like, okay, we want to do this. We want to do another like longer stint abroad. But we also wanted to become parents. Like we wanted to have a family. So just kind of doing the math of, when those things were going to happen, it was like, oh, well, when is the next time we're going to have a big chunk of time to go away, when my husband can, take time off work and his job will be waiting for him, when he can get a stipend from the government, like for the parental leave. So literally being paid to be off work with his child. And we kind of thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we actually started planning the trip and putting money away for it probably in 2021. And then we didn't have our baby and didn't leave till 2025. So, 4 years of I think you could go on a trip like this without planning for 4 years, but that we kind of, very slowly put together an itinerary and put aside money and things like that over the years.
Yeah, and I think that's a clever thing to do, to plan that far ahead, because it's a big trip that you went on, and also you took Ellie with you, which is kind of an addition. So at what point did Ellie come into the equation as like, okay, we'll take Ellie too?
So when we had lived in Prague, we actually brought Ellie with us that time as well, and that wasn't the original plan. We originally were going to leave her behind with some family members, but a couple months before we left for Prague, we were in Southeast Asia for a few weeks, and we kind of just got the feeling like, we were very sentimental, like, oh, we don't want to be apart from our dog. That was only a 3-week trip. We're like, how can we be apart from her for a whole year? And then things were kind of falling apart with our plans to keep her with family. People, I think if somebody had to take her, they would have, but nobody was really like, oh, we'd love to take the dog. Like, please let us have her. And she's a little bit anxious. She's a rescue dog and she's very like attached to us. So we just kind of thought like, okay, if she can handle the travel, then she will enjoy it. And so far, she's been such a champ with travel because she's so small, she can fly in cabin with us. So she just curls up in her carrier, goes right to sleep, wakes up in the new place and like ready to go. No problems. So she's I'd say she's the best traveler of all of us. And was very happy to be there. So when we started talking about doing this with our baby, we kind of knew from the jump, like Ellie, has to come, the dog has to come with us too. And that was sort of the added layer of, well, the baby makes things complicated and then the dog made it more complicated. But that was always the premise when we started out planning of like, okay, how do we make it work for everybody?
No, that's perfect. So let's have an overview of a kind of a whistle stop kind of tour about what did you do? Where did your journey take you?
Sure. So first stop, so we are from Vancouver. So our first stop was just a week kind of here in BC, catching up with family, that sort of thing. Then our next stop was Toronto. So we were in Toronto for 10 weeks and we stayed with my parents. And I kind of call that like easing us in to travel because, we were still in Canada. We got to stay with family. We got to use their car, that sort of thing. So it was kind of our first taste of like, can we do this with the baby and the dog? That they were helping us. From there, we flew to Paris. And then from Paris, we took the train down to Orléans in the Loire Valley. And we were there for 6 weeks. And then we made our way up to the UK. So we took about 2 weeks kind of doing a bit of a road trip through northern France, all the way up to Calais, which is kind of the northeast corner of France. And then we took the it's not the Channel, not the Paris-London train, but the other, I think it's called like the Le Shuttle or Eurotunnel, something like that, little train.
Eurostar.
I think, it's not the Paris-London one, it's the other one. I don't know.
Okay.
It's got, I don't know. There's another way, but we took that over to the UK. And then we were based there in London for about a month, Brighton for 2 months, and then back to London for the last month. And then somewhere in there, we also flew to Spain for a week for our daughter's first birthday.
Oh, love. Whereabouts did you go in Spain?
We were in Málaga in Andalusia.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. So what time of year did you do this trip?
Yeah, so we left Vancouver at the end of June 2025, and then we got back to Vancouver March 2026.
And so you were away quite a long time from your home, which is in Vancouver. So obviously, logistically, you're traveling with a baby. And I remember when my daughter's now 30, but I do remember when she was little, the amount of things that she came with when we went anywhere was ridiculous. So how did you start sorting out what you could manage to take in terms of your luggage allowance?
Yeah, so that was, and it changed actually quite a bit throughout the trip. So when we left from Vancouver to Toronto, that first big flight, we had 3 checked suitcases, and then a couple backpacks. And then we always had her travel stroller. We had the car seat, and it was the kind that you could like clip into, like it fits in a plane. You can bring it on board. And we actually did get her own seat on the plane, even though everyone says like, oh, when they're babies, they fly free. But they're long flights, and I didn't want to hold a baby, especially on the way home. She was like 15 months old. I was like, I'm not holding a 15-month-old for 10 hours on a flight. No, thank you.
No, I agree. I couldn't imagine anything worse. No, thanks.
No. And especially because we have the dog in cabin with us, she has to go at our feet. So,
Yep.
you know, my husband and I are fairly tall people. So we'd have like 2 of us, a baby on our lap and a dog at our feet. And I was just like, no way, we need one more seat. So we brought the car seat, and we actually brought our crib. So we had a travel crib. It kind of packs up. It goes into a backpack so you can wear it on your back. And that was her crib. It's actually still her crib. She still sleeps in that today. And she had that kind of from birth. So it just came with us on the road. But we downsized quite a bit. So we had the 3 checked suitcases, like the large suitcases, to Toronto. And then when we left from Toronto to go to Europe, we downsized to 2 checked suitcases. We were able to send one home. My mother-in-law came out to visit us, so we sent her home with a suitcase of just like summer clothing, and we had gotten a lot of gifts for the baby, so and just sort of downsizing our own, like, okay, we don't need all of this. And then even, through Europe, we kind of switched, okay, this backpack became a suitcase, this suitcase became another suitcase, that suitcase broke, replacing things. But the actual travel days were always a little bit of a hassle, just even reducing the luggage as much as possible. It was tough.
Yeah, I always say that the more luggage you have, the more stressful it is when you're moving around, whether that's flying or whether that's taking up a train, however you're doing it. It's always the more luggage, the more stress. It's a direct correlation. Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. I have to ask this because it's just crossed my mind, but did baby C start walking while you were away? Because that would have changed things slightly.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she started walking. She took her first steps in Brighton when she was just a year old. And then she sat down for the next month. Like, she did 8 steps and was like, okay, I'm done. No more of that. But then when we were in London, kind of our last probably couple weeks in London, she started to really, like, that was, more of a thing for her, walking around. But now, she's about 18 months now and she's running. And I already am like, what, this would have been such a different trip if she was, as active as she is now. Like, that would have, the flight alone would have been a whole nother story, running up and down the aisles, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I can imagine. I was a bit of a chicken. I didn't take my daughter on any long haul flights until she was 5. And then I was like, right, okay, we'll do it now. I was like, no, I don't fancy it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now, obviously, you kind of were planning the trip. And so how did you decide about the different bases that you're going to? So obviously you came back over to Europe. So was that based on places that you've been before and you wanted to spend more time in, or was it just kind of places that you thought, oh no, these would be really cool places to kind of base ourselves?
Yeah, so we decided kind of on Europe as a whole because we did have that familiarity with it. Like, my husband and I both traveled there a lot. We lived in Prague for a year, so we kind of felt comfortable with, we know it's safe. We know how to, get help if we need it, that kind of thing. And then in terms of the actual, like, cities that we chose, so our original plan, we had applied for these French long stay tourist visas. And long story short, $1,000 later, they did not come through. We got rejected, and they just told us insufficient information. So we have no idea what was missing or what was wrong. They were, French bureaucracy, very vague. And we actually didn't get our passports back until 2 business days before our flight. So it was very scary times in Toronto before we set off. But we basically had to pivot quite drastically from there because the plan was really to spend most of the time in France. So that's kind of how we ended up adding in the UK, because then we'd be out of the Schengen zone and, we didn't have to worry about visas or anything like that. But in terms of actually picking the cities themselves, we weren't too fussed about, if we'd been there before or anything like that. But we were really looking for places that were, first of all, easy to get to. So we knew we were, flying into Paris, and we wanted to be able to just take a train from Paris, not be, spending lots of time, trains, buses, planes, taxis, all that stuff. And then we were also looking for places, because we were going to be there in each base for, I think, 4 to 10 weeks was kind of our range. We really wanted them to be cities that had a lot going on, lots of amenities, lots of things to do, groceries, restaurants, shopping, day trips, activities, galleries, museums, that kind of thing. Just because, especially with the baby and the dog, we're kind of limited for how far we can go. So when we were living in Prague, it was, oh, let's go to Rome for the week. Let's go to Morocco for a week. It was very easy to kind of bounce all around Europe. Whereas this time it was like, okay, we're in Orléans. What are the things we can do in Orléans? Or if we get on the train for half an hour, what can we do in that kind of general region? So it was really important to us. We didn't want to rent a car. We didn't want to kind of be stuck anywhere. We really wanted to have exciting cities to kind of base ourselves in. So I think that was kind of our main criteria, easy to get to. And then, lots going on.
Yeah, lots to do and easy kind of access to different things that you want to see. So that also makes sense as well. So obviously you're saying you spent sort of from 4 weeks onwards basing yourself on the place, which is nice. Kind of slower travel and be able to kind of immerse yourself a little bit more in the different places that you stay in. So how long do you think it took you before you kind of felt kind of relaxed and kind of familiar with the place?
Yeah, I think pretty quick. I'm the kind of person, like, even before this trip, as soon as I check into a hotel, like when I leave, I'm like, oh, when are we going back home? We got to go home. And I'm referring to the hotel because it's home now. So we were very quick to, as soon as we get there, like we fully unpack, things out of the suitcases, out of the packing cubes, set everything up. And I think part of that was because, the baby, we got to make sure her crib and her diapers and all that stuff is ready to go. And then I think also because of our baby, we kind of were in quite a bit of a routine of like, we have this much time before she naps and this much time before a meal. So the days became very like scheduled and in kind of a loose way. Like we had specific times we wanted her to nap, but it wasn't like, okay, like, we got to go and do these things at this time. But I think being in that kind of a routine made it feel like home a lot faster. It's like, okay, we're having breakfast together every morning, then we're going to play with toys, then we're going to go out and do something, then we come back and we're going to have a nap, and then we'll have lunch, and then, that sort of thing. So just, I think spending all that time in the accommodation and in the kind of local neighborhood, like walking the dog a couple times a day at the local park and going grocery shopping and doing all the laundry you have to do with babies, made it feel like home quite quickly.
It must have been actually nice, because I can imagine when you were out walking Ellie or out for a stroll with baby C that you would meet people and people would talk to you.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things that I didn't really realize was going to be such a big difference with this trip, but especially with our daughter, because she's so social and like she loves to wave at people and smile and clap and all that sort of thing. We made friends so quickly, and not lifelong friends that we're going to be at each other's weddings and funerals and that kind of thing, but just like little things, we'd be on the tube in London and, on the tube, everyone's, kind of head down on their phones, not looking at anyone. And she's smiling and waving and playing peekaboo and tapping people on the shoulders. And we had one lady come up to us and she goes, I think your baby is the only person who's happy to be on the tube. And I was like, yeah, I think so. So that was so fun. And because we were in places for so long, we were able to we enrolled in baby swim class. So we're seeing the same families, every week for 6 weeks, I think it was. We go to the local library, we go to the same playgrounds, it's the same kids, you see the same parents, and you kind of, get to know each other a little bit. And that was definitely, I think more so with our baby. Our dog is less social. She's just a little scared. So we smile and nod at other dog owners, but usually we're more like, let's cross the street because she gets nervous. But with the baby, for sure, she opened up a lot of social connections for us.
No, that's really sweet. So you mentioned a little bit about kind of accommodation. So obviously, because you were staying longer term in places, how did you go about finding accommodation that was going to be, right for you guys? And one thing I have to ask you is, because this is something that Doug moans at me about, if I don't get something that's on the ground floor, because I would imagine the amount of stuff that you had to take up and down, I guess you were looking for something that didn't have a lot of stairs or had a lift.
Yeah, that was, in hindsight, I'm on Doug's team. We should have done a little bit more on that. Yeah, so we used Airbnb, and I know people have their thoughts. Some people love Airbnb, some people it's not for them. I think for us, it made sense because we were going to be in places for so long. We definitely needed a fully equipped, apartment with the full kitchen and the bathroom and the laundry and all that. I think if you were going to be somewhere even longer, many, many months, you could probably find a cheaper option on the local rental market. But Airbnb, they take care of it all. There's reviews. It felt quite safe. And then in terms of, the actual places we were looking for, we always wanted to, there's filters on Airbnb where you can say I'm bringing a baby, I'm bringing a dog. So we'd always make sure to click that. We didn't want to freak out any of the owners showing up with our baby and a dog. We'd always look for places that were very as spacious as budget would allow. So in London, that was still only a 1-bedroom place, but just some space for our daughter to be able to crawl around, play with her toys, set up the crib, that sort of thing. Make sure that, it was very clean and we'd feel comfortable because we had her, we were spending a lot of time in the apartment. So we wanted to be more comfortable. Whereas on past trips with just me and Colin, if it's kind of dark, if it's kind of dingy, it's like, no problem, whatever, it's just to sleep. But this time, we really wanted to feel good about the place we were staying. And we tried to be in very central neighborhoods where, there was the restaurants, the shops, the grocery stores right outside our door. And we could take a tram, a tube, a bus, kind of anywhere else we needed to go in the city. And then in terms of the flights of stairs, so I don't think we ever got away with, even the apartment we booked that was ground floor still had a couple steps to the door, from the sidewalk. But the worst was our last place in London was in Canada, we call it the third floor. I think they call it the second floor in the UK, right? Because I
think it would be, because we have ground then first and second.
Yeah. So we go just 1, 2, 3. So it was the third floor, and each floor was 2 flights of stairs up. And I don't know why I read it when I booked it and I thought, okay, day 1, bringing the luggage, that'll suck, but then it's fine. But then I forgot, every time we leave the house, we have the baby, the stroller, the groceries, the dog. It just, 4 or 5 times a day. I'm like, why did we do this? So that one I wasn't thinking.
Oh, I can imagine. I think I did it once or twice, and now I make sure when I book anything, because Doug will ask me. So how far away is it? I'm going to be carrying this luggage. How many steps? Yeah. So it's kind of something I guess I've learned over time to make sure that we're not too far to go.
Yeah, smart.
So obviously, kind of when you're planning a shorter trip, there's certain things to think about. When you're doing something that's for a long trip like you just did, were there things that you had to consider slightly differently?
In terms of booking, planning things or booking?
Yeah, I think, when we do a shorter trip, we kind of go, you're away for 2 weeks or a month or whatever, and you've booked your accommodation, and, you might do a little bit of research and you make sure you know where you're going to go and eat, and you do that sort of thing. But for a longer trip, I guess you don't necessarily maybe have to do anything kind of as detailed as that.
Right. Yeah. I was listening to you and Doug this morning, talking about your international travel tips. And I know you mentioned if there's something you want to do, book it in advance, because then you show up and you're disappointed. And I think that's actually one of the nice things about doing a longer trip or slow travel is you just have so much more flexibility, right? It's not like, oh, I want to go to this restaurant in Paris. I'm only in Paris for 2 nights. I have to book it. It's, oh, I'm in Paris for a month. Let me open up their calendar. Oh, they have a reservation spot, 3 weeks from today. Great. I'll grab that. So I think that was quite nice. We didn't book too many things super in advance, besides the flights, the car rentals, the bigger transportation pieces, obviously the accommodation. That one I would say it's the opposite. I think you have less flexibility with accommodation because you need to book for such a long period of time. So it just really, the options, especially on a place like Airbnb, as soon as you say, oh, I'm looking for a place for 6 weeks and I want it to be dog friendly and baby friendly, it's there's 3 options in each city. My husband's always like, oh, what are we looking at? And I'm like, well, it's one of these 3 places. That's it. Or we have to pick a different city. So that I would say is very important to book in advance, but everything else, kind of the day-to-day itinerary stuff, I still did a lot of research, and I would just save places on Google Maps, or I'd write, a list of things. Here are the things I want us to do this month. And then we'd kind of plot it out, each day, each week, we'd look at the list and go, oh, what do we want to do today? Oh, that looks fun. That looks good. And if we came across something that's, oh, actually that's booked up this week. Okay, great. Let's reserve it for next week or something like that. So there were a couple times, we took our daughter to meet Santa. So that was something, you had to book the tickets to go do that in advance, or we did afternoon tea, your favorite. So we booked that one we booked.
Oh, it's lovely. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because as I say, some things are more flexible. You have more flexibility with, and other things you have to think a little bit more ahead, especially because you say you had the dog and you had a daughter with you. So you've got additional kind of logistical things to think about. There's a baby as well, not a grown up child. This is a baby. You've got to think slightly differently when you have a baby with you, if that's for sure. So obviously I have to ask you this. So logistically, when you were getting around from place to place, how did you and your husband have an agreed kind of I'll be looking after Ellie, you'll be looking after baby C. That's how we do it, kind of routine, or not?
Kind of. I think so. Our first priority was like, let's make each travel day as seamless, as easy as possible. So, working with the Airbnb host, like what's the latest we can check out? What's the earliest we can check in on the other side? We didn't want to have like any dead time. And then some of the routes were really easy, like Brighton to London, I think it's like an hour on the train, 90 minutes, something like that. And we were staying 2 minutes from the train station in Brighton. And that was the hardest part, was pushing our bags up the hill for 2 minutes. And that was, after that, it was a total breeze. So we really tried to prioritize, like, what can we do on the travel days to make them as seamless as possible. If it's, we don't usually take taxis in cities. We're more public transit people, but it's like, if we can just throw all our stuff in a taxi and pay money, but save, half an hour, like, let's just do it. And then, we would usually divide up the baby, the dog, and the luggage. And it was usually just a matter of who has like a spare arm, like we both put something on our back, we both take something in each hand. And then if my husband saw me struggling to push, okay, let's switch. Like, I'll take this bag, you take that bag. And then when we got on the train or the plane or whatever, I would usually like settle the live people, the dog and the baby. And then my husband would sort of get all of the gear onto the train. It was like, hey, you get all of this stuff off the platform into the luggage area, and I will just make sure the baby and the dog are okay. Is usually how we did it.
I think one of the advantages, though, the fact that you guys have traveled before and have traveled together before, is that you already kind of know each other and how you travel well. So it sounds like as a team, Doug and I are the same. We're a really good travel team because we kind of know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are, what he needs help with, what I need help with, whichever way around. And we kind of just know each other now. So that it works really, really well. So I think obviously that helped a huge amount with you guys, like before you did this sort of trip, that you guys had this experience together and it would just kind of, as you say, know who would do what and who would do what best at whichever particular kind of, Doug's the one that does all our I give him I do all the booking, but he gets all the tickets to keep because I'm like, no, you keep all those. So he does all that sort of thing. So it's just, you kind of settle into that, don't you? Were there any moments during your trip where that felt hard, that you thought, oh, this is just harder than I thought?
A lot. A lot. I think when we didn't get that France visa, especially because it was so last minute, that was kind of a very big pivot. And I like to think I'm a kind of person who, like, when things don't go to plan, when things kind of go haywire, I'm very good at like, okay, we need to pivot, like, let's problem solve, let's, do what we need to do. So I was very quick on like, okay, we can't go to France. Where are we going to go? We're going to the UK. Let's find a place. Let's work it out. Whereas I think my husband's a little bit more like, I just need to like panic about the thing. And I'm like, nope, like right in action time. So we did pivot from that quite well, but I'm more of like, after I've pivoted, after I've solved the problem, then I sit back and I'm like, whoa, that was a lot. I got to like process. So that was quite tough. And then, like we spoke about, the actual like moving day, like the travel days themselves were quite difficult. We did decide, as I was saying, when we were traveling from the Loire Valley to get up to the UK, we did like a road trip. In hindsight, I think we should have just taken the most direct either train or flight just to get, there as fast as possible. I think we just kind of had really lofty ideas of what a road trip was going to look like, but it was not like, our daughter does not really love her car seat, does not want to be in the car for a long time. And then we stupidly booked an electric car, which we've never driven, and we've never driven one in France. And it was very, very complicated. There was a lot of the charging stations, you had to have like a special card that they don't give people who have rental cars to use, and it wouldn't work. And just like, it was such a drama. And we, because we were inexperienced, we had no idea like how long would a charge last. We'd be like driving back to the Airbnb and my husband's like, I think we can make it. I'm like, well, we have to make it. Like, we have a baby here. Like, we've got to get there. So just, that was I think not smart planning on our part. So that was probably the hardest. I think once we returned to that car, we were like, okay, no, never again. We're not doing that again. No.
I think the thing is, though, that when you learn when you travel and you kind of go, okay, that was something we're not ever going to do again. You kind of learn from it, don't you? And it's like, the more you travel, the more everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes the wrong choices, and you kind of go, right, okay, won't do that again. The main thing I think is that you just deal with it. Like you say, you pivot or you deal with it, you handle it, you just deal with it at the time. I think it's by not falling apart. It's by going, actually, things sometimes go wrong and we just have to figure it out, and we will work it out.
Exactly.
And that's always that's the best way to kind of like think about it and deal with it at the time. And, I always kind of just say it, Douglas said, look, nobody's died. Yep. We just need to figure this out, and we just need to be calm and sort it out. And and as I say, they always go down in that. You go write that down. Go right. Okay, won't do that again.
Exactly.
Learn from that.
Exactly.
Now I'm gonna ask. I know obviously you had baby C, so there was some paternity leave for your husband. But obviously planning long-term travel sounds like kind of quite a financially quite an expensive thing to do. So was there ways that, you thought about planning it that would make it a bit more kind of cost effective, budget friendly? And obviously slow travel is more cost effective and budget friendly to start with. But were there other things you kind of thought, okay, how can we kind of stretch our budget further?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of this is going to be do as I say, not as we did, because we fell off a lot of these rules. But when we initially started planning this trip, the idea was to try to stay in places that were lower cost of living than back home in Vancouver. So we were kind of looking in, southern Spain and different parts of France that were going to be a little bit cheaper. But then again, we went to the UK for 4 months and totally threw that plan right out the window when we decided to stay in London. By staying in Airbnbs for more than 4 weeks, a lot of them offer a monthly stay discount. So that was huge. And I would recommend if you're staying even in an Airbnb for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I would just check if you put it to 28 days, which is the minimum you need to get that monthly stay discount. Sometimes places were discounted like 50%. Like it was a wild number. And I think Airbnb actually tells you now, so a little thing will pop up and it'll say, oh, if you stay 3 more days, you actually save like hundreds of dollars. And it's like, oh, okay, like I'll book that. So that was a huge one for us. We never stayed anywhere less than 28 days because we wanted to get that discount. And then like you were saying, slow travel in itself is kind of cheaper on the day-to-day because you're not rushing around, you're not jumping on, flights and trains every single day. And you also kind of adopt a little bit more of a local mentality, like you are grocery shopping, we had breakfast at home every single day. Whereas if we had only been in London for a week, I'm sure we would have eaten out every single meal. We did eat out a lot of meals, don't get me wrong, but we also did try to cook at home at least once or twice a day. And then, you also just have some more chill days, like you'll just do, we went grocery shopping and we did the laundry, or I think we went to go see a movie one day, something that's quite inexpensive, or we went to the library, we went to the playground, and then we're there for so long, we get the discount card for Tesco grocery stores, like we get that because we're going to be here and we're going to shop there, so we might as well save some money. So just little things like that are kind of similar to how you would do it at home. I think you can adopt a lot of that when you are slow traveling to save on the budget.
Absolutely. Well, but when this podcast comes out, actually, Doug and I will be in Cape Town, and we've got accommodation for, I think we're there for about 22 days. Yeah. And basically the point of that is that as well as exploring Cape Town, and I'm seeing friends when we're there, I can do a bit of work. We could do a bit of grocery shopping. We could do some cooking, because I've been traveling for quite a few months now. And actually, I'm looking forward to a bit of kind of just home cooked stuff, and not actually eating out, because that can become a bit it's lovely, but also looking at how tight my jeans are, it's not something I want to be continuing too much longer. But you can get into a bit more of a routine. You're not kind of feeling that you have to go out and sightsee every single day, because you've got a longer time there. So that's really cool. So looking back on your trip, is there anything that you did just went exactly as you planned it?
I think in sort of the bigger picture things. So I'm really glad we kind of prioritized family, I would say, throughout. So spending those first 10 weeks in Toronto, I'm really, really glad we did that. It was kind of the first time my parents and siblings got to meet our daughter, and just having a really concentrated amount of time back in my hometown and sort of getting that first ease into travel, I think was really great for us. And then we also had all of our parents come out and visit us while we were in Europe. So that was really nice too, because I know they were very you're taking our granddaughter away from us. So it was so nice that they came out. I think my mom came out 3 times actually. So that was great. We got to see them kind of every month or two. There was another grandparent showing up and staying with us, and that was awesome. They got so much time in with baby C, which was great. We did quite a few day trips when we were in Orléans, the Loire Valley. So we got to see, I think we saw like 7 or 8 different of the chateaus, the castles. And I'm really glad we did that, because by the time we got to the UK, we weren't doing as many day trips. And I think that was partially because there was just so much in the cities themselves. We didn't feel like we had to go, but it also started to feel like a little bit more of a hassle. I don't know if maybe Baby C was a bit more active or what it was. But for some reason, when we were in Orléans, we really prioritized that. And I'm glad I look back and I say, oh, I'm really glad we managed to do that and go out and see those really cool castles and things that we got to see. And then I guess just, it didn't go to plan exactly, but like, I'm just really glad we went. I think there would have been so many opportunities for us to say, it's easier to stay home. We're like, no one's forcing us to do this. No one else is doing this. Like, it would have been so easy to just save it or do a shorter trip or something. But we kind of, I think because we had been planning it for so long, the wheels were kind of in motion. We could have at any time turned to each other and said like, nah, let's not bother. But I think we were both so committed to this idea. I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, oh, like, what made you like what, why did you actually go? And I was like, oh, it wasn't even really a question by that point. Like, by the time she was here, it was already like, yep, we've got the travel crib, we've got the stroller, like, we're packing, we're going. So I'm just I'm really glad we were both so committed to that idea and we could make it happen, even if we had to, pivot and change things along the way.
Oh, that's brilliant. And is there anything that you'd change if you do it again?
I wouldn't apply for that France visa. We weren't going to get.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? It's kind of.
I wouldn't rent that car in Normandy. That was bad.
Yeah.
And then I think probably just a few like minor packing things I probably would have done a little bit better on. We by the time we arrived in Europe, it was already mid-September, and at that point we knew we were going up to the UK for the winter, which not ideal, but that was the pivot. But for some reason we packed I had shorts, dresses, sandals, and I'm like, what did I think was gonna happen? I don't. So. Yeah, very ambitious. But luckily, my mom came out to visit us pretty quick after we got there. So we just sent her home with all of this summer clothing we had brought. I was just shaking my head going, why did I bring sandals for winter, essentially, in the UK?
I think that's sometimes it's one of the hardest things when you're away for a long time is actually thinking you've got all these different seasons to pack for. So what do you put in and what do you pack? I think packing it's a bit of a dark art, deciding what to take and what to pack. And it doesn't matter how much I pack and how little I pack. I always think I've packed too much. Yep. That's kind of how it goes. Yep. Now, anybody listening to this who may be considering traveling with a baby and or their dog or just the dog and not the baby, is there any one tip that you'd share for anybody kind of planning kind of longer term slow travel?
Yeah, I would say kind of similar to what we were talking about of not feeling that pressure to sightsee every day. I think it's really important when you are doing a trip like this is to kind of give yourself permission to just enjoy local life. And sometimes that is just, you go to the local coffee shop, you do some work, and then you come home for the day. And I know I struggled with this. There was days when that would be kind of all we did. And I would feel this FOMO really of there's so many, there's all these museums and there's all these galleries and stores and, all this stuff we should be doing, especially in places, like London, where it's endless, the amount of things you could be doing. But I really had to kind of sit back and just say that's not why we're here. That's not the purpose of this trip. I don't want to burn out and spend every day, sightseeing from, 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. kind of thing. And that I do want to sort of take a step back and just enjoy this local life and all these opportunities that our daughter kind of opens up for us, that we are going to go to playgrounds and city farms and libraries and local events, and really just appreciate those and take the time to kind of savor those moments of us getting to be together as a family in this cool place and not feel like I need to make the itinerary really hectic with all this bucket list stuff. So I think I would encourage people, kind of lean into that local life. And especially if you are traveling with a young baby, I always would say this is our first trip with her. It's not our last trip. We don't have to fit in every single thing. It's okay if she doesn't appreciate this thing. If we have to, leave the museum early, that's fine. We can come back some other time and see it again.
I was going to ask you about, do you have future travel plans, Riana?
Yeah, well, we actually just did a trip to Vancouver Island a couple weeks ago. So that was more of a little local trip, but it was still great, kind of scratched the itch. And then in September, October, my husband has a couple weeks off. So I'm hoping to get back to Asia. We haven't been for quite a few years. It's just going to depend on flight prices. But no,
so have you got anywhere in particular in Asia you've kind of got in your sights on? I know you were in Japan for a bit.
Yeah. So Japan, Korea, and Taiwan are kind of top of my list. But I'm very much like wherever the flight is cheapest is where I'd be happy to go there. So I'm crossing my fingers something pops up that we can just, the flight prices have gone a little nuts lately. So we'll see.
Yeah, they certainly have. And will Baby C and Ellie be coming with you on that trip?
Ellie will not come on that one. We've kind of decided she'll be 13 this summer. She's getting a little older. She's losing her vision. So we've kind of decided she's probably done. And she's very much a homebody. So I think she'd be happy to kind of stay home with a sitter. But Baby C will be coming for sure. So that's the other hesitation. It'll be quite a long flight to get to Asia. And my husband's going like, oh, do we want to do 12 hours on a plane with she'll be 20 months old at that point.
Yeah, that's it. That's going to be quite interesting when she's, as you say, running around on a longer flight, slightly different.
Yeah.
Now, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast, Riana. It's been lovely to chat with you. But can you kind of, and I'm sure everybody listening is going, it sounds fantastic what you did. So hopefully I know we've got lots of photos that we'll share in the show notes as well. Sure. But if people want to find you, where online and I know you've got Substack, and I've also got Substack, so I should follow you. Yes, I will follow you after this. So share where we can find you.
I will. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, so my website, it's teaspoonofadventure.com, and then Substack, it's the same thing, teaspoonofadventure.substack.com. So yeah, lots of blog posts, guides, behind the scenes, stories, photos, all that good stuff.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, I will put a link to your website and to your Substack in the show notes, which are at globaltravelplanning.com. And this is episode 100, which is just amazing. So I'm so happy that you came on for that lovely episode. 100, fantastic number. But yeah, thank you so much to you in Vancouver, Riana, for coming on and chatting to me today in England.
Thank you for having me. Safe travels. I know you've got lots coming up soon. So congrats on 100. That's incredible.
Oh, thank you, Riana. That really means the world. What a lovely, honest conversation. The thing I will take away most is Riana's reminder to give yourself permission to simply enjoy local life and not feel you have to fill every single day. And I have to say, I loved the image of Baby C being the only person on the London Tube who was actually happy to be there. And since I've just been in London, I totally, absolutely resonates with me. That does. If you'd like to follow Riana's adventure, as she said, you'll find her at teaspoonofadventures.com and on Substack with the same name. All of our links, along with some gorgeous photos from the trip, are in the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com/episode 100. And because this is episode 100, I want to say the biggest thank you to you for listening. 100 episodes only happen because you keep turning up, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. If you've enjoyed the show, please do leave us a review on your favourite podcast app or send us a message via SpeakPipe. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. But for this very special episode, that's it for this week. Until next time, from me, happy global travel planning. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.